The Nuggets are likely to be without Nikola Jokic as they take on the Pelicans in the start of Cup play. So what does this opportunity afford for Denver to develop some of the young guys? Plus, we'll talk about how to improve the rim protection problems, and we'll give some early thoughts on the Grizzlies doubleheader they've got next week. All that and more on Swipe and Gripe on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and being an everyday or hanging out with us Monday through Friday. We do appreciate you guys giving us those 5-star reviews. Just take a second and do it. It helps us out so much with spreading the word of the show. And going to youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets, hit the like and subscribe button. You do not know how much that stuff helps. It's the best way to support the show. Send the show to a friend. We are growing a lot right now, and we would like to continue to grow. So help us out with that. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, co-host of Locked On NBA, Monday through Friday in the afternoons. Great show. Go check that out. I'm joined by Swipa. He's on Twitter and on YouTube at Swipacam. You can catch him after every single Nuggets game, giving his thoughts, wearing an awesome Rockies auto hat.
And also on Blue Sky.
And also on Blue Sky now. I'm on Blue Sky as well at HP Basketball. You can check that out. On today's show, we'll talk about the Grizzlies 2-game set for the Nuggets on next week, and we'll talk a little bit about how to improve the rim protection because the Denver Nuggets interior defense needs a little bit of a boost, some work to be done there. But we'll start with this, Swipa. Joker is questionable. He was downgraded to questionable yesterday with personal reasons for this game, and not going to report or get into those things because that's a private matter between Joker and his family, except to say that it's more of a, from what we understand or think, it's more of a good thing than a bad thing, which is good because usually personal reasons are bad things people have to deal with. But it does look very likely like the Nuggets are going to be without Nikola Jokic against the Pelicans in the start cup play on Friday night. Now, look, the cup I like the cup, but it's whatever for this Denver Nuggets team. You talked about the cup yesterday with Ryan. My question for you is, all right, you got a game without Joker. What do you want to see the Nuggets do and focus on if they got to play a full game without Nikola Jokic, knowing that their win probability, even against this wretched Pelicans team that's without 5 of their top 6 guys, even against this Pelicans team, their odds of winning are pretty low without Joker. What do you want to see them focus on?
So Joker, per Bennett Durando, he is out tonight. Seems like he is going to be gone for sure. But this Pelican team, to your point, no CJ McCollum, no DeJounte Murray, no Herb Jones, no Jose Alvarado, no Jordan Hawkins, and no Zion Williamson. That team is decimated. They are not going to have anybody on the roster playing today. So, namely, I'm guessing that Zeke Naji, based on how the center rotations have gone, is going to start. And so if that's the case, the Nuggets are going to go very athletic. And it's going to be Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Peyton Watson, and Zeke Naji, which is probably going to be one of the most athletic lineups they played in the Michael Malone era. So the idea of that should be that they're going to play very high-intensity defense. They're going to switch everything 1 through 5, and they're going to look to get out and run. Now, here's the fun thing. Zeke Naji in the preseason showed that he has some shooting shots that have recalibrated, and he was able to find his jump shot. But so far in the regular season, that hasn't happened. I would love there to be a scenario where Zeke Naji tonight can give you about 12 points, 8 rebounds, hits 1 or 2 threes, and you can actually see it work. That conceptually in the regular season, he can kind of slide into that 5 spot to be an approximation of Aaron Gordon as that backup 5, and to be able to play good switch defense today versus a lengthy team in the New Orleans Pelicans. And also Jamal Murray, 2 years ago, he averaged about 22, 8, and 8 in the title year without Joker. Now, that was only 4 games. But I want to see if Jamal Murray is able to pick up some of his playmaking. He's obviously been a very good playmaker the last couple of years. I'll be excited to see, how he continues to kind of utilize that role today. And I want to see Michael Porter Jr. continue to get action. Michael Porter, historically, when Joker's not been in the game, he has not been featured offensively at all. historically. But Porter has really integrated himself in the Denver Nuggets offense, and I think there's going to be a path for him to score around 18 points today. But I have a sneaky candidate for who's going to lead the Denver Nuggets in points today. If you could take a guess, Matt Moore.
Peyton? Christian Brown.
Yep.
Christian Brown.
I think Christian Brown
You think he can create offense on his own?
Well, I think what's going to happen is it's going to be the spot ups. It's going to be the transition. It's going to be a lot of downhill stuff. Emisi is a good player, but really they don't have a big that's going to distract you from getting out of the rim or staying away from the rim consistently. But also, too, again, if they're getting enough stops defensively, Christian is just very aggressive at this point. And again, if his jump shot is consistent tonight, I can see Christian scoring around 24 points tonight in this game. And so that's going to be kind of my bet. I want to see just an overall attack for the team defensively. I doubt they're going to have the entire game or even a half. They'll play locked in defensively the whole time. But if we can get 2 or 3 pockets of them kind of locking in, running some decent half-court sets, DeAndre Jordan's going to be able to play with Jamal Murray and see if Jamal Murray can use a more traditional big to see if he can utilize that. Maybe he can see some drop coverage today, hit some three-pointers. If he can start the game off really well, that would also be ideal as a shooter. But, we'll see. But ultimately, I want to see how they kind of build around Zeke. I want to see the inclusion of Michael Porter Jr., and I think that Christian Brown's going to lead them in scoring.
2 years ago, when the Nuggets won the title, they lost a game to the Pelicans, 107-88 without Joker, and that was the game where everyone freaked out and was like, this team is garbage without Joker. They can't do anything. Then they won the next game without him. You talked about Zeke. I think Zeke starts. I think this is a good opportunity for him. One problem I just continue to have is, in what actions are they going to be able to generate those threes? I'd like to see a pick and pop with him fading back like Joker does the top of the key. I'd like to see that. We don't see a lot of that. We don't see a lot of that out of the actions that they run with Zeke, but I do think that that's the best way to kind of use him.
Yeah.
I wish they would use more of them. Can I get a promise from you?
No. I know what you're going to ask. You cannot.
If Dario Saric plays, can you just not spend the entire time complaining about his minutes because this is a game where he needs to get his legs under him?
His legs are not under him right now?
He hasn't played in 3 weeks.
Why hasn't he played?
Because he was bad.
Okay, so you're saying if he's bad again, don't say anything about it.
Just let him have this game. This game, let it go. Next game, you can blast him. Next game, totally fine. Just this game, don't spend the entire time tweeting, why is Dario on the floor? Get Dario off the floor. Can't believe Dario's on there. Dario made this mistake. That was actually Christian's fault. But whatever. Don't do that.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't, they should win tonight. So hopefully
I will bet you Denver the next time that you're in Denver. I'll bet you dinner the next time you're in Denver that Christian Brown does not leave the Nuggets in scoring tonight.
Who does? You have to pick a player. You can't just be the field versus Christian.
But I just want, that's all I want is not Christian. That's what I want here is I want not Christian. Okay. I'll go Julian Strawther. I'll take Julian Strawther over Christian.
All right. That's a nice bet. Okay.
And if somebody else does, then neither one of us owes dinner.
Okay.
I think this is a good opportunity to kind of test out some new things, get some different lineups going. It's going to be tough. It's not just Joker. It's Aaron Gordon, too. So without Joker and Aaron Gordon, going to be tough sledding for the Nuggets, even against this Pelicans team. Up next, the rim protection has been not good. The Nuggets are giving up a lot of points in the paint. That continues to be an issue. We'll get into some of the solves for that and why I think a certain young Nugget is the key to making that happen. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood Gold. Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Swipe and gripe with you on a Friday. We'll have a post-game show, quick recap episode on Friday night after the Pels game. Come heck or high water. So Swipa, the rim protection has been an issue for this team, and so I did a little dive in, did a little divey dive. The Nuggets are bottom 5 in opponent points per possession on cuts. They are bottom 10 in opponent pick and roll man scoring per possession. So lobs, rolls, etc. That's been a problem. They've been good contesting putbacks, but they've had a lot of problems, generally speaking, at the rim. And that's been just like a big problem for them. That's something that they've really got to, kind of improve on. Opponents have done really well on layups as well. That's been a key area that they've struggled with. So I looked at some of the numbers for the on-off splits, and I thought it was pretty interesting, honestly, to kind of look at who's been on court when they've struggled in points in the paint and who's been off court when they've struggled in points in the paint. And so I'll ask you this kind of starting, who do you think, outside of Dario, because it's Dario, who do you think has been the worst player for on-court points in the paint allowed?
Jokic?
Jamal. It's been Jamal because of the perimeter penetration and the weak side help. Russ is able to make some plays down low as a help man on those low possessions. He's pretty good at contesting. He's got the athleticism to make blocks. Second highest is Aaron Gordon, because I think Aaron's really kind of struggled in that area. And I do think when I've gone back and watched some of the film that opponents are moving Aaron as far away from the rim as possible, knowing that there's no backline protection if you're moving Aaron away. So they're either using switches or spacing with their stretch fours to get Aaron away from the rim. The starters are mostly high, except for Jokic is actually not that high because he plays with that second unit, and that second unit's actually done really well. The second unit's been a lot better with those. DJ has a lot of opponents are scoring with DJ on the floor, but not in the paint. That's pretty expected. Russ has one of the best on-off differentials, where when he's not on the floor, they score a lot, and when he is on the floor, they score very little. Here's an interesting one. Off court. Okay. So when a player is not on the floor, the lowest person on the Nuggets for opponent points in the paint is Christian Brown. Okay. And that's not on Christian. The thing I have to kind of think about this, and we were noticing it in the Mavs game, and I talked to Ryan about it. I think there are times, not a lot, but times when Christian should actually take the corner wing assignment and be used as the help man on the dunker spot to help come down and provide that rim protection, because he's got great instincts and great athleticism. And sometimes using him as a primary initiator on the perimeter, honestly, is a waste of his skill, because those guys are going to score anyway. If it's a guy he can disrupt, you use him. But if it's an elite guy that he doesn't have a good matchup with, I actually think there's more opportunities for Christian to be that low man, weak side corner help in the Nuggets scheme than there is maybe for him guarding one of the elite perimeter weapons. Thoughts?
I think that's interesting. Would you say that says more about scheme and their reliance on Christian as a primary perimeter defender, or says more about Jamal Murray? They just don't feel like he can hold up at all.
I think it's less that, and I think it's more that, I don't think that Murray's getting absolutely blown by. I do think that they're giving up switches really easily with Murray, and he is struggling with those now. Teams have kind of figured out, oh, don't do this with Murray, do this instead, or you've got this advantage, you can attack him. I don't think it's about how well Murray is defending, because I actually think he's been pretty solid overall this year. It's more that they're finding ways to make him vulnerable, and he's not going to provide any of that weak side protection, right? When he's on the floor, Russ usually isn't. And if Russ isn't on the court, you lose that guard dynamicism, and Jamal plays a lot without Christian. And that same kind of dynamic, I think, kind of exists. You need more minutes. You need to make sure that you're not putting Jamal in positions where that's a weakness. You need to be able to have roster compositions that cover for it. And that may mean strategic adjustments to make sure that your low man help is good. that may mean like, now the question here is, if you're doing better on the 3-pointers, is that worth it? Maybe. It might be worth it. But like, it's not that Jamal's getting blown by here. That's not the problem. It's your weak side help that really is getting burned, because I will say, like, I don't think Joker's been good defensively this year. He's been insane offensively, but he hasn't been great defensively. And I think that needs a little bit more help in low man situations.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel that since game 2, when they made their offensive turn, that their rotations have been as smooth as they usually were, or even just as committed. I think a lot of the Nuggets, just because of the way they play their scheme, they have to be fully engaged to be like a really good defensive team, and they have to spend a lot of energy. And Joker in particular, we've seen Joker at the end of games, the Thunder, part of the Wolves, the game versus the Mavs, where he'll really step into space and he'll move a lot. But Joker also is just not going to be willing to do that. And again, I also want to say too, like they have run into some heaters. Like the Nets were hitting everything. Kyrie Irving was hitting everything.
Yeah.
They tried to play drop. It wasn't work. And Joker plays that drop. He lets Kyrie get to a point. He'll do the swipe down on the ball to hope to get there. Nothing. I think they have run into some matchups that have just been running a little hot. Even Miami. Remember Miami? They made their season high in 3-point attempts in that game with 19, and they were 19 of 40, and some of those were covered. Grady Dick, ultra, absolutely. So I think variance is kind of what I'm more so giving some of that up to. But schematically, I think that they always have to scheme rim protection. In the 2023 NBA Finals, they were an elite rim protecting team.
Yep.
And really, that season, they were elite in their rim protection. And last year, for the most of the year, they were actually a top 5 in terms of efficiency at the rim. But the issue is they keep you from getting to the rim because they know they don't have anybody on the roster outside of really Michael Porter Jr. with the starters, and then Peyton Watson with the bench, and then sometimes Christian Brown, sometimes Aaron Gordon. They really don't have players that are like great rim protectors and rim deterrents.
I'll also say this. Katie Wingy makes this point a lot on the broadcast, and I think it's such a good point, and it kind of slides by everybody. But Katie talks a lot when they play 2 on ball with Joker at the level. The idea with drop is largely it takes away your need to play with effort.
Mm-hmm.
Like, take 4 steps back, put your hands up as a 7-footer.
Right.
If you're going to play at the level, you got to be engaged. And so if you play that scheme, but you're not engaged and you allow them to pass over the top of you or around you or between you, then you have failed in execution of that scheme. It's supposed to build a wall and force. It's not blitz, but it's supposed to force them to be like, all right, I got to reset this to the weak side.
Right.
And then we'll try again. Right. And if you don't execute that correctly, that's when you're going to get a lot of these layup opportunities, because you're asking those corner guys, hey, if you help too early, they're going to hit that overhead pass to the corner, and now you're giving up a 3.
Yep.
But also, you got to make sure you can get down low, because if they hit the underneath pass over the top, that's a dunk. So like a lot of this is on the execution of not just Joker, but Joker.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the Mavs game was a perfect example of what you're talking about, because Daniil Gafford got low on 7 possessions.
Yep.
And went 7 of 7 to start the game off. And again, you have to, when you play that kind of coverage, you have to get there now. Like, you have to get there immediately to keep them from getting inside the restricted area. But then off that point, you do have to be able to rotate quickly from the wing down to the corner. And so that's what I mean. Like, the timing has to be perfect for you to be able to execute that well. And really, the only elite defensive times we've had since the second game was when Jokic was on Najee Marshall, and they changed their coverage up. And then Jokic was on Alex Caruso, and they changed their coverage up. But other than that, they really have just played a very baseline regular season defense.
Yeah.
And last year, when they did that, they just had a little bit more natural defensive upside because it was KCP, Christian Brown, and Peyton Watson.
Yeah.
They were all playing on the court together.
Yeah.
And so I think the team is just different now.
Outside of how much better Christian has played than KCP, and he has, I think a lot of it is like, all right, but even if you, like, let's say that you kept KCP, but Christian had earned the starting spot over him, which wouldn't have happened, but let's say it did.
Yeah.
You still would have had KCP in the rotation instead of Julian. And again, I wrote about this on our Locked On newsletter. Like, Julian plays, he makes mistakes, but he makes them fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is like, he plays with a lot of effort. I think he's going to be okay eventually.
Yeah.
But like, the drop off is just massive there. And your ability to be like, and especially from 2 years ago when it was like, hey, we're going to play KCP, Bruce Brown and Christian Brown.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna have those three guys.
And then Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green.
Aaron Gordon. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff for them to clean up. We'll see if they can start with that tonight versus the Pelicans. On the other side, we'll wrap up talking about the games versus the Grizzlies. We've already kind of talked about the Pels game. We'll talk about the games versus the Memphis Grizzlies and what those mean for Denver. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $5. Can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Swipe, is the Broncos game going to be played is it going to be shown in Denver this weekend?
Showing in Denver?
Yeah, I'm just worried because it's got a tendency to get blocked. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join
Must
today.
Be nice to have 3 Super Bowls.
You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets.
Imagine if you had a quarterback that had more touchdowns than interceptions. Go ahead, my fault.
It's not his fault. They've bounced off of the receiver's hands.
Okay.
I mean, you're right. We would have fewer losses if the quarterback had played better.
Yeah. Win losses. Quarterback win stats now. I got you.
They sure are, buddy. All right. Final segment here on Swipe and Gripe on a Friday. Let's talk about the Grizz games because I think they're very interesting. Don't know if Ja's going to be back. It's like a weird injury. He's questionable for tonight. It sounds like it's more serious and he may not be back. Bane has been upgraded. He's doubtful tonight. Bane's questionable, so it sounds like he might be back. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit closer to what Memphis looks like full strength, but without Ja, it's very different. This Memphis team, Denver, would lose one and then destroy them in the next game when they were healthy 2 years ago. What are you kind of expecting in these games? I will also say, whether Joker is back or not, I have concerns about the fact that the Nuggets are going from New Orleans. They have an off day. They play in Memphis. They have an off day. They play in Memphis. If there are places I don't want an NBA team having lots of free time in, the list is like Miami, LA, Toronto, and then the next two would be
Memphis.
Have Beale Street, baby. Gonna get that Beale Street flu.
Man, that's after 9:00. I'm going home in Memphis. Now, New Orleans, on the other hand. Yeah. I can understand. Yeah, for sure.
There's great music in Memphis.
No, Memphis is a wonderful city, but I'm more so concerned about the itis in Memphis than I am going out and, getting into some trouble.
But what are your thoughts on kind of this 2-game set versus the Grizzlies coming up?
Yeah, Ja Morant, G.G. Jackson, Desmond Bane, Vince Williams, Brandon Clark. I mean, they have a assortment of players that are kind of up in the air right now. But ultimately, I'm actually curious to see kind of the Zach Edey fit. I mean, I know they didn't think about this in totality, but ever since Memphis drafted him at 9, I was curious to see how much they were actually thinking about the Jokic matchup. And I would love to see kind of what does that look like conceptually to have Jokic with Jaren Jackson Jr. and then obviously with Bane and Smart and Ja Morant when everybody's healthy again, what that would look like. But I think these are going to be good games. I love the way Memphis plays basketball, man. Like, they could end up being a top 3 seed this year. Their defense, stationary defense, is really good because they're so big now on the interior, and they have a lot of different ways that they can attack you and stuff as well. Like, I'm excited to kind of see how everything's laid out with the team and what they're doing, how they're spacing with them. If Joker's back, it's going to be a real matchup. I don't think the Nuggets can win both of those games without him. I don't even know if they can win one of them without him, just because the kind of matchup that Memphis would present for the team, especially defensively. So I'm excited to see it. I wish Ja Morant was playing because Ja Morant has a lot to say about his status in the league this year.
It's true. The chat is pretty much divided between whether or not the Nuggets should absolutely win this game versus the Pelicans or if they have zero shot because Joker's not playing. It's very funny. And basically, if you're like a Jamal Murray hater, you're like, they should absolutely win this game because you're setting the expectation that if they don't, Jamal's failing. And if you're a Jamal Murray supporter, you're like, well, you can't really expect him to win. Joker's out. And if you're a Joker fan, you're just like, this team is dead to me if Joker does not play. So like setting expectations, I think is gonna be pretty funny. Tell us over at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets in the comments if you think the Nuggets should win this game versus the Pelicans. That's gonna do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'll be back after the game. I'll do a quick post-game show tonight, and then we'll be back on Sunday night with No Jinx with Ryan. Make sure to check out Swipa over his YouTube page and on Blue Sky, which I'm enjoying a lot over at Blue Sky. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.